Welcome, Tengku Irfan, to Flair Podcast. It's so nice for me to have you as a guest. We've known each other for several years, and we met back in Juilliard, where you were this wonder kid, prodigy that everyone was talking about. But my actual first introduction to you was during the composition auditions. Remember, that was the very first time we met you, and you were so nice and so humble that I didn't expect that you were this huge musical genius. And I would love to talk about that. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Thank you again for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. And it's nice to know you from Juilliard and to meet again.
Absolutely. So just a little bit of context. Irfan, well, your first name is Tengku, yes, but everyone knows you as Irfan. You are a composer, pianist, conductor. Actually, conductor first now, right?
Yes. That's exactly it.
But at Juilliard, you were known as this really, really talented musician who was kind of everywhere. I first met you as a pianist composer, and we actually studied with the same professor at the beginning. And then you did this switch to conducting. And now, your career is thriving. You have your own Ensemble Fantasque. Is that it?
Yes, that's
and a bunch of things about you, man. And it's really cool to catch up this way. You recently got married to another really wonderful Juilliard composer and New York scene and really important performer from the New York scene, Chenki.
Chengjin.
Sorry if my mispronounced. And recently you got married.
Yeah.
And recently you had your firstborn child.
Yes.
What is his name?
His name is Sulaiman.
Sulaiman. And we are now both of us committed men. We both recently got married, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about. First of all, just for those of you who don't know Irfan, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you guys that he really is this big prodigy. I basically have never met someone who can read at quite the level that you can, like sight read music. You have all these wonderful abilities, all this talent, and I want to know first, where does Irfan come from? And you are from Malaysia, but how did this talent begin to be developed? Do you come from a musical family? Give me your story from the beginning.
Yeah, of course. So I'm born in Malaysia, and both of my parents, they were not musicians by profession, but they were very supportive of music and me doing music. How it all started was, I remember I was about 7, and I was testing piano in a piano shop, and then my dad saw that I was interested in it very fully, so he
you were
brought
just
one
testing
keyboard.
You had never touched a piano before?
Oh no, I was just fooling around like any young kid would be doing, testing
like
around.
Just hitting it. Yeah, of course.
And then my dad noticed that I got I'm serious, and I wanted to play the piano even more, so he bought one keyboard at home, and I kept playing it. And then from then on, I started taking piano lessons. And shortly after that, as I was learning piano, I have this thing about learning pieces is that I can't sit on the same piece for a very long time. I noticed that I would get bored. So what I would do is that I would like to maybe change a note here and there in some pieces. That gradually led to improvising, which then led to composition.
Absolutely.
So composition, in a way, I would say the starting of it wasn't pure in a sense that it wasn't because I knew I wanted to be a composer, but it was mostly because I was bored at first with just learning the same piece. And I like to fool around existing pieces, change notes here and there, and then eventually write my own original music. And then the conducting part of things came, I would say, from the compositional background, because once I started composing more, initially from the piano, I decided that I felt that piano was nice, but I have this drive and want to know more about other instruments.
Absolutely.
So that naturally, not only led me to compose more orchestral music, chamber music and such, but also to be more interested in conducting. So in a sense, those beginnings in a way shape my view of music. So in a way, I don't see music as just performer driven or compositionally driven. So it's in a way more wholesome for me.
Absolutely. So it's a lot of really interesting things to talk about there. So you started music when you were around 7, 8.
Yeah, that's when I started piano.
But regardless of that, you developed perfect pitch. Yeah, you have perfect pitch, right?
Yes, I do.
So that's a little bit interesting to me because I kind of assumed you had started really, really young, like at 3 or 4 or something. And do you think you knew you had perfect pitch back then? Like, did that develop through time, or did you have it already?
To be honest, I'm not sure whether I developed it or I was born with it, but I knew that when I was younger, I could identify notes here and there. But I
Yeah.
do know this also con of having perfect pitch.
Yeah.
Which happens to myself also is that I hear the pitch immediately, but because I hear the pitch and identify it so accurately, it becomes more difficult to have the ability to transpose things. So when I
Absolutely, yeah.
transpose things, I revert back to the original pitch. So, that's the con of having perfect pitch. But the good side of things, I would say, is that I'm able to identify pitches quickly, whereas someone with a relative pitch
Yeah.
may not identify it immediately, but would have natural ability
And you know
to
how they know
transpose.
how it works, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
relation to like music theory, how precise is your perfect pitch? Do you know like up to the cents, or do you just know, oh, that's a C or a slightly out of tune C, or how precise is it? Do you think?
I would say for me, I would know it's a C.
Mm-hmm.
Tuning is very interesting because for me, that's very relative. So if let's
Okay.
say a C is out of tune,
Yeah.
but then if everyone else, let's say in the orchestra, plays to that C,
Yeah.
which is considered quote unquote out of tune,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to tell if it's out of tune because
Okay,
everyone's.
okay.
But if the tunings are different, then that's where I know, okay, this needs fixing.
Yeah. And how does it work with someone with such precise perfect pitch? When you're a conductor, no orchestra, everyone is slightly out of pitch, right? Does that bother you, knowing that flute 1 and flute 2 are like a few cents off? What do you hear when you're conducting?
Yeah. So for me, tuning matters in the orchestral sense,
Yeah.
definitely, because I would say, every day when we encounter it, we find a way, how do we solve if something's off, or should we not solve it and trust that the musicians will fix on their own. So it's always a give and take with tuning, but it is definitely something that I consciously think about.
That's really interesting. And when you have like violins and strings, like everyone's out of tune, but that's what gives it that orchestral sound, right? So that's pretty interesting to me. And so you were born in Malaysia. When did you move from Malaysia to the US?
So I moved from Malaysia and stayed in New York since I was 13.
13. And did you move because of your musical needs, or was it something independent?
So I moved here to the States because I got accepted into Juilliard pre-college.
Okay.
So it wasn't just me, but in fact it was a big move for me and my family too. So my family
Moved here with you.
moved with me. So in a way, I'm very grateful for that support, because I know that's something definitely not to be
Not common for everyone, right?
Yeah, not to be taken for granted.
Yeah, can you imagine if little Suleiman suddenly got really interested into basketball, and then you both have to move to Dallas or whatever? That'd be a very big change, right?
There'll be a big change. I in fact, now that you mention it, I don't know if I'm prepared to even think about it. But as they say, time goes, we do the adjustments we need as life, big life events happen.
Absolutely. And so, what kind of support did you have from the beginning? Like, were your parents aware of like musical culture, of what a prodigy is? Because I'm assuming that as soon as you started doing music, you started to thrive in it a lot. Since your parents were not musicians, how do you think they knew that your talent was worth the move or worth the commitment? Because there's a bunch of young kids who may show some talent for something, but you're never sure if it's just a passing interest, it's a phase, or it's something really serious. Like, have you ever talked to your parents about why they decided to support you so much so young?
Yeah. For me, I would say the support from my parents is mostly because they see the deep desire in me to pursue music.
Yeah.
I would say less so the talent aspect, because one can be talented but not want to do music, but rather maybe do more engineering, maybe
Absolutely.
more interested in science or technology. But for me, it was the joy, the thrill of making music. And my parents see that, and they see that I can't live without it.
Amazing.
So they know that, for me, this is probably what my livelihood will turn into something that's fully focused around music. And because of that, they feel that I would benefit from a program that focuses on that's perhaps more rigorous. And so they were searching for different schools in the in the area outside of Malaysia, and throughout around the world. And
does Malaysia have like a big music culture and classical music, or is it lacking?
I would say Malaysia right now is improving in its classical music presence, although I still think we still have a lot more steps to go into making it a center for classical music. There are talented people, but often these people will have to get education outside of Malaysia.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know a couple of really talented musicians from Malaysia, and I'm just surprised that there's such an accumulation of musical talent in Asia in general, even when the countries themselves don't have the infrastructure for it, or don't have that much experience with high level musicians. Like in China, I'm sure there's a lot of support, Japan, Korea, but Malaysia is one of those countries that I hear doesn't provide all those opportunities, so you have to move. And in that sense, we're pretty alike, because I come from Mexico, that is by all means a rich country in many ways, but the town that I come from perhaps didn't provide all those opportunities, right? But it's really good that your parents were able to see that and say, okay, we need to go to Juilliard pre-college. And tell me about how does Juilliard come into your life? Because you spent 12 years or something there, right?
How many? 12 to 13. In fact, I lost count, but I think you're pretty accurate right there with the number.
Yeah. So how does Juilliard come into your life? How did you find out about your parents?
Yeah, so for me, it was mostly from my parents and people around me saying that, I shouldn't just, hide what I do behind a closet, but I should express my love for music with as many people as possible, and go to a school that really supports and trains music seriously. So Juilliard was one of the schools that perhaps came to the top of maybe most people's hits. In fact, it's just well known. It's a well-known school. It's a well-known school. I would say I was also lucky in the sense that I didn't know back then, when I was 11 or 12, when I auditioned for Juilliard, I didn't know the big prestige that it has. In a way, it helped during my audition, because I remember during my audition, I just knew that this was a music school. I didn't know this was a big one.
Music, a big name. Yeah.
So I wasn't too nervous during the audition. But if I were to rewind time back then, I would question if I would even get it, because I would probably feel very nervous now that I know how big it is.
It's auditioning for a college, or in this case, pre-college, is something that can really, really change your life in a completely extreme way. Like your life has been really, really different ever since you guys moved here to the US after you got into Juilliard pre-college. Do you remember anything from the audition? Do you have any memories of it? Did you play? Was it a piano-based audition?
It was, So the first audition I had was a piano audition.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, I auditioned for the composition program. And I got into both majors. So I was
so you're doing pre-college and piano and composition?
Yes. So I was a double major.
Okay. So I didn't realize you had been doing that for quite that long time. Interesting. And the audition, you felt normal? Do you remember what you played?
I remember, for the piano audition, I remember there was a Mozart sonata that I played, K333, the one in B flat major.
Okay.
Prokofiev, third piano sonata, and a few other pieces, basically standard piano repertoire.
And that's a big repertoire for someone 12 or 13 years old, or I don't know how old you were.
Yeah. But now seeing the young pianists, they learn big repertoire, especially those that go through pre-college programs. It easily looks the same as a full-fledged concert pianist.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming that back in Malaysia, did you have some competition? There were other kids who were just as talented and thriving as you were, or did you feel like you were the star of your town? And how did that compare to when you moved to Juilliard and there's a lot of talent there? Did that shock you?
For me, when I was in Malaysia, I never felt that I was more talented than other people. If anything, I felt that my love and obsession for music
Yeah.
was perhaps more than the average person.
How obsessive
around
were you?
me.
Like 12 hours a day, or how would you
Um,
describe that obsession?
Perhaps maybe almost 24 hours, in fact. So
What?
when I
Nah,
wake
really?
up, I have to either listen or read through a piece. Like I need to listen to it. In fact, you could say it's medicine for me.
And how quickly did the support around in Malaysia like run out? You needed more things to learn. How fast did that happen?
Yeah, so for me, when I was in Malaysia, I like to learn many pieces, growing up,
Yeah.
and when I reach a certain age, around 10 or 11,
Yeah,
people in the country felt that I needed something bigger,
Yeah.
something longer, more sustainable.
Yeah.
Because the people there are nice. They have great hearts, but yet they also want to see me thrive
Yeah.
in an environment with hopefully more people like me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or like you, who are really serious about music. So then that year come when I was about 11, when I auditioned for several schools, hoping to get into a pre-college program.
yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. And once you start pre-college, you started living in Manhattan. Where were you guys living?
We were in Manhattan when I started pre-college.
That's pretty cool. And how were those first few years? In New York, it was a very big town. What was your reaction to this big move?
Yeah. So for me, I would say because I was relatively younger, it was in a way exciting and a lot of fun. I didn't grow up in Malaysia for too long to the point that I felt I was very homesick.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I don't miss. I mean, yeah, there are times where it will be nice to go back home to Malaysia.
Yeah.
But because I moved here pretty young, so that feeling wasn't super strong in me. The need to go back often.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the culture here, the people here, the music scene,
Yeah.
of course.
What do you miss about Malaysia, if ever? Whenever you miss Malaysia, what do you miss about it?
The food, the way more affordable cost of living.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you have a family to support. Now you got to think about all those things, right?
Yeah, and living in New York, as I'm sure you know very well.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I live up here in Washington Heights. Where do you live? Like downtown?
I live now in Hell's Kitchen.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good place, man. And so you get here to New York. You entered a pre-college program. How did you find the teachers were like? Were they offering you a lot of support? You felt there was suddenly a lot to do. You felt like, oh man, I need to really work really hard to get really good. How was that experience for you?
So for me, the working hard came naturally because I realized that I have been obsessed about immersing myself in music. So that came naturally. In fact, if anything, I felt happier because not only I was just churning work, but my work is being recognized, and there are people who understand what I do even more because the environment is filled with more musicians, more people like me who can understand me. So it wasn't just for me that I had good education, but also supportive community around.
Yeah. Do you remember who your teachers were back then in pre-college?
Yeah, in pre-college, my piano teacher was Johevet Kaplinski.
Oh, you studied there with her since pre-college?
Yeah.
Is that usual? Like,
yes, there are some teachers who teach both pre-college and college, and she happens to be one of them. There are also
great.
those that only teach one of the divisions. And in fact, because I'm very indebted to Kaplinski in not just teaching piano, but giving the foundation of my piano technique. So I was with her for the entirety of my piano education.
Yeah, well, Vera Kaplinski is a really recognized figure in the piano world. And how did you enjoy working with her? Did you learn a lot? Well, apparently, obviously, you did benefit a lot from her instruction. But how did you work on that relationship like throughout years of working with the same teacher? How was that for you?
Yeah. So for me, when I came to Jura, my intention was to maybe stay about 4 or 5 years and then come back. But as the years,
Oh, your intention was to go back to Malaysia.
but then
Okay.
as years go by, I realized that I really love the environment here, and
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
wanted
cool.
to keep on studying, keep on honing my skills,
Yeah.
and get as much musical opportunity I can, because this is something rare. You can't get this anywhere in the world, but being here, this is something I really cherish. So being with Vera Kaplinski, I the reason I stayed with her for a long time is because she not just gave the foundation,
Yeah.
but she was also like a family member. So
Yeah.
so whenever there are challenges, whether it's musical challenges or whether it's life challenges, like going to college or
Yeah.
or even like being in a relationship, she's there for you.
Really?
So yeah, not just the musical part, but the familiar aspect. So with her, she's more than just a teacher, but she acts as a very sensitive guardian. So
Amazing.
naturally, those 12 years never felt like it was too long. One would, from an outsider's perspective, that's a long time to be spending with a teacher.
And
But
at a school specifically,
Yeah.
and can people be like, "Oh, why don't you go somewhere else?" and everything.
yeah. In fact, it was, I thought, very kind and generous of her to offer me the option of switching teachers midpoint of my studies.
Yeah.
But then I say, I love getting instruction from her, so I stayed with her.
That's excellent. And how did the composition part of your career evolve? Like you started composition at pre-college. Who did you study with?
When I was in pre-college, I studied with Dr. Ira Taksin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that develop?
Yeah. So compositionally, I really enjoyed it. In fact, there are times where if I have to choose between piano and composition, there are times that I maybe thought about being a concert pianist, and there are times that I thought that maybe I want to be a full-time composer. That was particularly strong during my
Yeah.
pre-college years, because
You want to be a composer more than a pianist?
pianist. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay,
That
good.
feeling, especially in pre-college. And with Ira Taksin, he taught me the rudiments of orchestration.
Yeah.
And the importance of score studying, as
Yeah.
many scores as you can to form inspiration from those.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so now let's fast forward a little bit into your college years. Now, I'm sure there came a moment in your life where you said, more Juilliard or not? Did you ever think about any other colleges? How was that for you?
For me, I was comfortable living in my own bubble at Juilliard, because
It is a bubble.
it is a bubble, certainly, but I think it's nothing because I have something affiliated with the institution or anything, but because I've done 3 different majors during my time there, in piano, composition, and then ultimately in conducting.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's always fresh for me. So if I were doing a single major, let's say,
Okay,
in the
just
same
piano
school,
or just composition?
yeah, maybe I might have the thought of switching schools
Yeah.
or doing a different environment. But because I've occupied my time with various different activities,
Yeah.
so it didn't feel long. But if anything, it felt like I was constantly being enriched by the environment there, and also
everything there, yeah.
knowing people from different backgrounds and different disciplines, and that itself is I feel very healthy about it, because I'm not just mingling with pianists, but I get to know composers,
Absolutely.
also actors, dancers.
Gotcha,
So it
yeah.
felt very wholesome for me.
Okay, so that's really great because one should be able to take advantage of the whole institution, because Juilliard has a lot of things to offer. Maybe some of the students sometimes make the mistake of just focusing on one single thing, but you very wisely were able to get 3 degrees out of it. So that makes perfect sense to me. And one very important part of a lot of students at Juilliard is the financial situation. And you were able to secure a Kovner Fellowship, which covers for all the expenses basically. And you got it for piano and composition, which is where I met you. So I'd just like to ask a little bit about what your relationship with the Kovners, if you're comfortable talking about that. For those of you who don't know, the Kovner Fellowship is a um, how do you call it? No, it's not a grant. A scholarship.
Scholarship, yeah.
It's a big scholarship that Juilliard offers to the most successful candidates. It's not offered to everyone, and that's a way of securing some of the best talents coming to our schools, or to our school. And how was that support for you? Because I know that it's not just money; they also provide a lot of guidance and stuff like that. So how was your relationship with the Kovner Fellowship?
Yeah, so for me, before I got the Kovner Fellowship, I didn't know the Kovners in person. It was after receiving the fellowship that I got to know them.
Yeah.
On occasional basis, through events and through meetups. They are a wonderful, nice, very generous couple, and always curious and supportive of what I do and all the other musicians do.
Yeah.
So my impression of them is that they're very kind people. In terms of the support they give, it was very instrumental, because the cost of studying at a conservatory is enormous.
It's
and
really
for
big.
those that are maybe less fortunate, that have to pay loans even after college. So for me, I definitely I didn't take it for granted. I made full use of my time, and I'm still today forever grateful of the support that they're able to give
Yeah,
during
absolutely.
my years there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great. And then you were able to only focus on your music making, your studying, which makes all the difference, because there are some students who might be having to work while they're studying and all that. So it's really good that fellowships and scholarships like this exist, right? And I think a lot of Juilliard students do benefit from scholarships like this, because if not, it's really difficult to pay all that money for college, right?
Yeah.
And that's a whole another subject. But when did you start thinking about making the switch to conducting during those 4 years? Because you were studying with Bela Kaplinski, and you were studying composition, and everything was going well. You won some big awards. You got to play some really good concerts. When did this interest for conducting come, and how did you start to think about wanting to work with the conducting teachers and doing a conducting program, as opposed to just occasionally conducting here and there?
Yeah, so for me, the curiosity, the love, thrill of conducting came pretty early in my life. I would say even during my pre-college years.
Yeah.
I took a minor in conducting when I was in pre-college, and it opened me up in this whole world of collaborating, with many people in the same room, trying to find a unified vision, but at the same time taking into account everyone's special talents and making it the best possible you can experience for all of them. So this facet of conducting, the community aspect, was really strong for me in making me want to hopefully pursue that in the future. Although when I was in pre-college, I never thought of it as a career per se. So I did the class in a sense that it was an elective that I enjoyed. But as years go, while I was doing piano and composition, I felt like something was missing, which is possibly strange to hear, because you would think, if I'm, doing my life as a pianist and also a composer, wouldn't I be very occupied? But strangely enough for me, I still felt something felt missing. And that missing part, I realized, is conducting, because in my earlier years, I not only practice piano or compose, but I know that I really love studying orchestra scores. I would like to
You're interested about that,
I sometimes like to sneak in rehearsals, not because people would tell me to, but because I liked observing how conductors work with orchestras, and I would come to open rehearsals and such. So I would say, even though I didn't have that much conducting experience when I was younger, the aspects of conducting, such as the score studying, the observing, the learning from watching, those are already inside my persona since I was very young. So fast forward to years ago when I started to do more conducting, it felt strong to me during COVID. I would say about 2020, 2021 that,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? I'm going to do something radical in the middle of this pandemic. I'm going to
good.
now, switch to a whole different major, something that, I haven't had that much experience before, but something that I'm very sure this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Oh, really? Man, that's a very big step. And was there anything about conducting that was particularly difficult to you? Like one thing that I, knowing you, you have always been very soft-spoken. You're always very kind. And my image of a conductor is someone who has like a very large personality, who, expresses themselves really easily. Was it ever hard for you to, get in front of the podium and, talk, say things, being a leader in that sense? Was that hard for you?
Yeah, I would say for me, thankfully, once I step onto the podium and once I start communicating with people, everything seems to fall in place. You're right about the idea of the large personality. That does exist in some conductors today, but also because of the change in the climate and in the the whole idea of personality in the time that we live in. There are more conductors who are kind, who find a way to be I wouldn't say dominant, but who are good leaders, but who also know how to say things in a nice way,
who don't need to be shouting so whatever
exactly
listens to them.
Exactly, yeah. So
that's good. That's a good step forward for sure.
Yeah, because of people who embody that characteristics. There are people like that. So I also feel like, I do not need to be egoistic to become a good conductor. Yeah. For me, the challenge was more because before I applied for the conducting program at Juilliard, I've had some experience conducting orchestras, but it wasn't extensive.
Yeah.
But yet I know that this is something that I really want to pursue, because even though I didn't have that much practical experience before Juilliard, I score studied so many repertoire.
Absolutely.
I watched many rehearsals.
Absolutely.
I just needed a platform where I could have as much podium time as I can.
Amazing.
Working with people, because conducting is something where you can only improve when you
do it a lot.
Yeah, when
Absolutely.
you do it a lot.
Yeah.
So, and you have to be open to the idea of making mistakes in front of a whole group of people.
Very much in front. Very much in front.
As opposed to, if you are a performer or if you're a composer, you're battling with yourself and the demons that you are battling with are in front of you. But whereas in conducting, especially if you are a starting out conductor, you have to accept the fact that you will make mistakes and you have to be fine with making mistakes in front of people. Everyone will do it at some point.
Yeah.
But if you have that openness, the embracing aspect that it's okay, I may say something wrong, or maybe I might do something wrong and people know it, but
sure.
if it's okay, then you have what it takes to be a conductor.
And what about the physicality of conducting, because you have to express with your whole body? Was that ever a challenge to you?
For me, I would say the physicality aspect of conducting wasn't too challenging for me, because
really,
somehow once I'm at the podium, the gestures come naturally to me.
Really?
And that could be through my years being a pianist, composer beforehand. So the gestural aspects of music, where phrases go, or the shape and the meaning, the depth of harmonic moments naturally come in a more expansive way when I conduct.
Yeah, you have music in your bones, because I'm also a pianist and a composer. And to me, like the physicality of it, and whenever I've conducted, it's really hard for me to, feel really comfortable, with my hands and all that. So I'm very surprised to hear that, once you step into a podium, it just overtakes you. That's really interesting to me. Okay, so you, during the pandemic, you're saying that you're starting to consider becoming a conductor. The conducting teacher at Juilliard is David Robertson. Can you tell me a little bit about how your relationship with him started? When was the first time you kind of, took notice of him and said, hey, he's a conducting teacher. Maybe I should approach him to start talking about possibly studying with him. What steps did you follow to work on that relationship?
So I first worked with David Robertson on the Messiaen Turangalila Symphony. So how
you
that came
performed?
about? Yeah, as a performer.
So context: Turangalila Symphony is a big orchestra piece that has piano soloists, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So how I got to that opportunity is because there was a piano competition at Juilliard. By the way, about competitions, I'm not the biggest competition goer, but I went to this competition mainly because the repertoire was just too enticing for me not to go. So
Turangalila,
I went all out with it, and thankfully I got the chance to perform the Turangalila Symphony and work with the Juilliard Orchestra and David Robertson himself. So that was how we first worked together. He didn't know me as a conductor. Understandably, I wasn't doing that much conducting activity at the time. I was mainly concertizing as a pianist. So we worked as me as a pianist, and he conducted me. However, when I started working with him, I got more interested in seeing and observing more of his rehearsals. And his rehearsals, whether he's conducting Juilliard Orchestra or a different professional orchestra,
or the Berlin Phil, big orchestras like that.
Or when he's teaching the lab orchestra.
Did you go to those classes, like conducting classes, to check it out?
Yes, and whenever I have the opportunity to either sacrifice a lunch hour or watch, I would go to and observe how he teaches the lab orchestra.
Amazing.
And through those experiences combined, I developed an affinity and a hope of what if one day it works that I could study under him. Because
and did you tell him, hey, I want to study with you? Or how did that go?
So I didn't tell him directly. If anything, I always fondly admiring David Robertson, not just as a conductor but also as a human. Because the way he approaches conducting is not this dogmatic point of view. If anything, he's great with metaphors, whether it's with young or older people. He'll find things to say.
He's a good communicator.
Yeah, he's a great communicator in a way that he brings something that's related to life and bring it into music. So in a way, you're not just doing music for the sake of music, but it has a more meaningful value to why you're doing it. And he does this amazingly with young people. Do
you have any specific examples of things that he said that you liked when working with an ensemble?
There are many things, but then I remember there was one time when he was talking about a dissonance in the chord where it was supposed to be a chord that sounded in C major, and then someone was playing out of tune, and then instead of saying,
"Hey, you're out of tune,"
you're out of tune, get out or something like that, what he did was, let's try that chord again. He said, when something feels sour like that tooth that you have in
and toothache,
when you feel like you have to go to the orthodontics, then it's not so good, and then everyone just laughs, and he's amazing at that, and that's just one out of.
It's a very human thing, that goes beyond like whether or not you're a good musician, you have perfect pitch, or the score. Just being able to like say a joke at a good moment, and just have everyone like you. That's so important for a conductor. How are you with that? By being, do you try to be funny? Do you not try to be funny?
For me, I just be the person that I am, and then when I see David Robertson doing that, I realized that, I don't need to be a personality, but if anything, I should be the best at who I am on
Absolutely.
the podium.
That's
and
great.
I feel that he brings that out in all the conductors that he teaches, especially the ones at Juilliard. So what I like is that every conductor that graduated, since he came to teach the studio, are very different from one another.
That's great.
In a way, I feel more hopeful and about the prospect of working with him, because I know that I do not have this typical maestro personality.
This is wonderful.
And perhaps he wasn't looking for someone like that, but all of this combined make me feel more closer to his temperament. And thankfully, in the 2 years that we worked together as me as a conducting student with him, we clicked on many things, and I just enjoyed every single second working with him, whether it
That's
was
great.
in front of the podium or just a casual corridor conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And by this time, you were like a really highly esteemed student at Juilliard. Were you able to get a lot of support from faculty or administration when you said, "Hey, I'm really interested about studying conducting"? Like, how did people react to that? Were they ever like, "Oh, but you're a pianist. Oh, but you're just a composer"? How did you ever have to fight against that?
If there's anything, right, I would say, in terms of the administrative side of things, people were supportive.
Yeah.
I was slightly nervous about Kaplinski, my piano teacher, whether she would support it or not. But
when you came out as a conductor.
When I came out, because I studied with her for many, many years, and then only to switch to conducting, I was worried that she might perceive it that way. But then, I remember she said, "You know what, go for it." She said that
Really?
she has seen me conduct pre-college in a rehearsal once, and she said that through that few minutes that she saw me, she said that I deserve to do this.
Yeah.
So I was in a way shocked, but very. My heart melted when she said that, because it showed to me that she didn't just see me as a pianist, even though that's what she mainly taught me, but she sees me as
a whole person.
A whole person, yeah. So that changed, my perception of her. In terms of the idea of people seeing me as pianist, I would say that's the harder aspect, because I've built many years in my career as this person who's probably pursuing a concert pianist career.
Yeah.
And then now when I'm switching to conducting, it's harder for people who see me as a pianist, see me now as a conductor.
How did they react?
I would say most of them are supportive. And of course, there are some people who do question, because we're like, can I even be a conductor? Because I've spent, only few years seriously in conducting, but I've spent so many years in being a concert pianist.
Hey, what did your parents say? What did your parents think about all this?
For me, both of my parents were very supportive, because my dad told me that, yes, I may not have conducted many orchestras before this, but I have done a lot of conducting preparation by score studying when I was a kid and observing rehearsals. He said,
and just in general, being a musician.
He said, because in the end, being a conductor is being a musician. It's not just waving the hands. Waving the hands is the practical side, but there's so much behind the scenes work that a conductor has to do.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. And so you study conducting at Juilliard. Things are going well, and you're getting more engagements. How would you like the networking part of conducting? Has it ever been hard for you to get out of the Juilliard bubble and finding opportunities outside in the world?
Yeah, I would say the plus side in my experience being a concert pianist is that I work with conductors. So when I change into conducting, I do know conductors that I've worked with during my pianistic years. So now they're more aware of me being a conductor. So I would say
because he wants to take our jobs now. Oh man, now you're a threat.
Maybe not. But
okay.
Maybe they might not be saying it loudly to me. But who knows? But
they take note. They take note.
Yeah, they may. But I think the main point of it is that I gain more relationships from the people that I work with as a pianist composer in my earlier years. So when I'm now a conductor, I don't feel like I'm
starting from zero, right?
Yeah, I'm starting from scratch, and I'm trying so hard to know people.
Yeah.
But I do admit the biggest challenge for me is the perception switch from a pianist to a conductor. So when I apply for jobs, people do question like, I've done a lot of work as pianist, so why do I want to be a conductor? Versus someone who wants to be a conductor from a young age. Might have a bit more of an age than me because because of that switch. So I would say for me the biggest challenge is to find a way to be accepted more as a conductor because of my past as a pianist.
Yeah, your past doesn't leave you, right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Now, I'd like to switch to something a little bit more personal. I think that behind lots of great men, there's always great women. And I would really like to ask you more in depth about your wonderful relationship with Cheng Ji. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, but she's a dear friend to me as well. And you guys have been together for quite a long time, right?
Yes,
when
yes,
did you meet? When did you start dating?
So I started dating Cheng Jin, who's a composer, back in 2016. So that's about
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, almost 10 years. And
you met her at Juilliard?
married. I met her at Juilliard.
Yeah.
Through the same studio. So, and until now we've been together. We were married in 2022, and we recently have a son now.
Yeah. And you guys are both musicians. She is from China?
She's from Singapore.
I'm sorry. She's from Singapore, and she performs, folk music from Asia. And she's really wonderful. If anyone doesn't know her or her music, definitely check her out. She's great. And then, so you guys know each other. You start dating, and how did a relationship fit into your very, very busy life of being a pianist, composer, and then conductor? Like, how have you managed that part?
I would say the positive side of being with Cheng Jin together is that we both are musicians. So in terms of what we do, there's so many overlaps. And if there are challenges in the work we do or people that we encounter or obstacles, we're always there for each other because, there's always something that I can relate to her, something that she can relate to me.
Yeah.
That's the great side of things. The harder side of things, I would say, is the aspect that because we're both musicians, none of us are, naturally business savvy or in that side of things. So we both have to work harder in that aspect, or finding something that's sustainable or making our work sustainable to what we do.
Yeah.
So that's the challenging part, I would say.
You guys are a wonderful couple. You guys are very similar in very different ways, but I think you guys work really wonderful together. And tell me about this decision to commit. Like, I don't know if you guys are like a little bit more conservative, but we live in New York City, which is very liberal, and a lot of people don't want to get married. They kind of question that whole paradigm of being together for forever. How did you guys reach the conclusion that we want to get married kind of young? And was it a decision that was motivated by was it motivated only by love and society, or how did you reach that decision personally? When did you decide to propose?
So for us, we knew we wanted to get married early on. So if
really?
if anything, because
I think men always know, right? I definitely knew myself. Yeah, pretty quickly.
But I guess maybe unique to our situation, when I started dating her in 2016.
Yeah.
Before we start to date, when we were just talking, to see whether this works, we want to make sure if we will marry. So if anything, it's like the date won't continue unless if we know we're gonna be married. Because from both of our perspective, we want to make sure that we are in it fully, from the beginning.
That's great.
That we're not just testing out. And this is not to gaslight on how other people do, but this is just unique to both of our personalities.
Is it a cultural thing? Does it work that way in Malaysia and Singapore?
I would say mainly for the Muslim culture, which I am, which is to to be with the person that you are going to marry.
Okay.
So in a way,
so you only dated one person, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
really wonderful.
Yeah. So because of my religion, I can only go with one person.
Well, I'm so glad that it's working out. So you guys get married. I saw some beautiful pictures of you guys dressed in folk attires. I don't know what to call them exactly. What are they? Can you tell me about those pictures?
Yeah. So those are Islamic attire.
Okay.
In the religion that we both embrace. So we had pictures in different costumes. So so that was great. That was fun.
Where did you get married?
So we got married here in New York.
Oh, really?
So yeah, legally we're married by New York law. We
okay,
we're married.
cool.
But we had our weddings in Malaysia and Singapore. So both of our
So 3
own
weddings.
countries. So 2 weddings. Yeah, we didn't have a wedding here in New York, but we were legalized in New York.
Okay.
But we had 2 weddings in one in my place and one in her place.
That's really wonderful. And is Singapore and Malaysia is really different culturally? I'm assuming yes.
I would say there's a lot of similar things when it comes to food and the way people speak, the dialects.
Yeah.
So those are the big similarities.
Yeah.
But in terms of how things are being structured politically, arts and so on, those are different.
Those are different. Okay.
Both countries.
But you guys have been able to match really easily? Like you've gone along pretty well.
Yeah, and it's quite remarkable because even though I'm from Malaysia, she's from Singapore. Even though we're just 45 minutes by airplane to each country, we never met there, but we met here in New York.
Well, that's what happens. That's just what happens when you live in a city like this, right? And well, congratulations for getting married. When did you get married?
So we got married in May 2022.
Oh, 2022. So it's been a little bit already. And you guys just welcomed your first son. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
How was that? You guys decide, man, it's time to have children. How was that decision for you?
So even before we dated, we knew. Yeah, I know, right? So we, aside from knowing the fact that we're gonna get married, we also talked about children, and both of us, wanted to have kids. And we got our son, and we're very thankful for that. However, the interesting thing is that our son came way earlier than we expected.
So, it happens. Yeah,
but as the saying,
you can't plan it. Yeah, what does the saying say?
The saying that it's always a blessing, regardless when they come out.
Yeah.
Yet it's also I would say it's exciting for us having a son, but also very difficult because. We're both still in the midst of our careers.
Absolutely. And your wife's still studying to her doctorate or DMA or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, you just graduated. So it's a tough time.
It is.
But it just happens, right? How is it to have a kid in New York? Has it been easy? Has it been challenging?
I would say the latter is more accurate. Yeah, definitely very challenging. Aside from the obvious expenses, the time commitment that we have to spend with him. That's also interesting because
tell me.
We're both musicians. So in an interesting way, none of us have a 9-to-5 day job.
Yeah.
So the plus side is that we spend more time with our child.
You both spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah, we both spend time. So that's the good side of things. However, financially is more difficult because none of us, neither of us have
like steady income,
steady, a monthly salary or like that. So we both right now rely on gigs and networking with people that we know and doing different kinds of jobs, or if someone wants an arrangement or someone wants a lesson from us, so we're trying to earn from
a bunch of stuff. And you had to become a very entrepreneurial in a very short amount of time, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Mexico we have this saying, un niño trae torta bajo el brazo, which means a child, when they come, they bring a torta or like bread with them under their arm, meaning that once you have a kid, you have to get things going, you have to make more money, you have to make a lot of changes. And now that you have your son, are you thinking about staying in New York to raise him here, or kind of where do you think your life is leading you now that you have a kid?
I wish I have a clear answer.
Good,
to whether
figuring out.
Do we want to raise our son here. I think that really depends on me and Cheng Jin. We plan it this way. Whoever's the first to get some kind of salary or some kind of secure job will move with whoever that person is.
Hey, that's a good plan. Yeah,
and our son will live wherever that is in the world.
I mean, the son kind of has to come with you guys, right?
Yeah.
You can't just leave him to to live by himself in New York quite yet. How old is he?
He's now 7 months.
Oh, just 7 months.
Yeah,
oh, I thought it was at least a year. Man, they grow pretty quickly.
They really do.
How are you liking first of all, fatherhood? And have you started like teaching him music and stuff?
In terms of fatherhood, it was very, very quick adjustment for me. I wanted to be a father, but again, as I said before, it came much quicker than I expected. So the aspect of
how old are you now?
Caring for him, I'm now. Wow, that's a good 26.
No, you had to think about it for quite a while.
I had to even think for my age. Yeah.
So what was the question? What did I ask you? Why did I ask you?
How was it? Was it how?
Fatherhood, and are you teaching him music already? Yeah.
So with fatherhood, there were a lot of things that I had to learn quickly.
Yeah.
But I think for other aspiring parents out there, what I learned from this is that you'll learn as it goes. No matter how much you prepare, the real life experience is in the end how you will learn. And every parent will stumble and will find their own solutions to their own children.
Yeah, and musical training. Are you thinking about him becoming a musician? How are you handling that whole part?
So for musical matters, we feel, me and Chunjin, we feel that we won't encourage him to do music because naturally there will be music in the house because me and Chunjin will do it. Also, it's also a realistic expectation that we want to give him because if we pursue music thoroughly with him, he may have the impression that being a musician is the best thing to do, when it may be for some people, but for some people it comes with a whole lot of other baggage and responsibilities.
I totally agree.
And pressure. We are not encouraging him, but we're not forbidding him either. That's where we stand on with the musical side of things. If anything, we feel like if he's as desperate, as obsessed of it as I am, then we'll encourage him to do music.
Exactly.
But if he's not, then we'll open him up to hopefully more lucrative means of occupation.
I feel it's exactly the same way. Whenever Tanya and I have children, I wouldn't encourage them to be musicians. It's really hard.
Okay, I'm glad to know that you're similar.
It's so hard. Yeah. No, like please be a lawyer, please be a doctor or something. Yeah. This shit is so hard. You have to do a bunch of sacrifices. The money isn't that good unless you do really well. But as you said, you have to be really, really passionate about it. It has to be something that you really want to do and that you wouldn't miss doing for anything. So it's really good that you're having those realizations, because I think a lot of people who don't have those responsibilities, who don't get married soon, who don't want to have children, kind of evade those, very important questions like, man, you really have to, if you want to do music, you really have to want it really strongly and extremely for it to work. And, a child is like an excellent motivator, because if not, there's a whole other person who depends on you. So,
exactly.
Now you have to do it. Now you can't switch to something else now, I guess.
Exactly. Now it's maybe a bit too late.
Maybe that's a little bit too late already. But you're 26. Changing is around the same age, and it's a really good time to parents. You're both young, you're both strong, have a lot of energy. What's something really hard about being a parent? Is it the image of the kid crying all the time? Is it accurate? Is it worse, better than you assumed?
The kid crying is pretty accurate from what we've expected.
Lots of crying.
Lots of crying, sleepless nights. I do admit, in terms of the sleepless nights aspects, we didn't expect to be that many sleepless nights. So
it's every night. Every night is sleepless.
Yeah, almost every night. Yeah.
Really? Oh man.
So but I think that's the reality with every new parent in raising their own baby. The hard thing for us, aside from finding something sustainable and trying to be best parents that we are, is also the image of how people see us. Like, for Chungjin, she's now a mom. So naturally, everyone sees her as a mom. Like, oh, congratulations on being a mom. Like, oh, you're how is it raising him? How is it? But then we also want people to not forget that we're still musicians. If anything, we want people to think us maybe more in that vein, because if anything, we need, more work to support
Totally.
ourselves. So it's nice that people see us as parents, but we don't want to lose that image of we're
Absolutely.
still musicians.
And we're
So I would
still
say that's the
freelance.
big-
We're still thinking
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
That's the big challenge for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why also you started your Music Education Academy. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so we started our academy called Tengko Academy, which is
Tanko.
Tengko. Yeah.
Spell it out. Make your commercial.
Yes,
Go
yes.
ahead.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to
Absolutely.
to have my 30-second ad.
Yeah, please
if you
do.
should say. Tengko is based on both me and Chengjin's family names combined. So Tengku, and Ko. So
Can you spell
hence-
it? It's really hard for me.
Yes, TENGKOH.
Okay. Tanko.
Tengko, Tengko Academy. We're basically an individualized online music lesson
Yeah.
lesson platform where people can sign up for lessons in whatever musical focus they want. It could be composition, could be theory, could be
Yeah.
conducting, or it could be even Yangqin. Something that me and Chengjin are specialized in, and they can even combine courses.
Cool.
Like if they want to do Yangqin and conducting, maybe, or if they want to do composition, but they want to learn how to polish up their CV. We're open to anything. Yeah. So
You're just willing to do anything that you can to teach and to get money from it.
yeah.
Makes
Well,
sense.
to get money, but also to open up to more people. Who
Yeah.
who want to know what is it like being musician, and
That's the right
just
answer.
to sharpen their skills.
Congratulations. That's the right answer. Good. Good.
Yeah.
Irfan. You're gonna do fine. And so how has the support been now that you guys are parents? Are people helping you out more? How is that part going? Like, do you have friends who are parents as well? No.
Yeah. In terms of friends who are parents, I would say it's more on Chengjin's side because
Okay.
she has her friends, colleagues who are moms now, and they sometimes she would talk to them for advice
Yeah.
and then ask them, oh, how is it like to be here, and so on. I also have way my circle, but I tend to realize, at least in my circle, I'm the youngest one,
Yeah.
considerably.
Considerably,
considerably from other fathers, so to speak.
Shit, yeah, 26 is really young. It's really young to have a kid these days.
Yeah.
But you're going to be great. Imagine, in 10 years, you're going to be 36 and you're going to have a little kid already. And there's a lot of people who are going to be 36 and not even deciding whether they want kids or not. So
Maybe I
have a
guess
head
that's the
start.
plus side. Yeah, that's a plus side. But
And
at the same time, there's I do feel like, okay, there's not too many people on my end who are in the same game.
absolutely. Man, that's really exciting. And just some closing thoughts. Where is your career going? Where would you like to be in a few years? Tell me about what your newest plans are.
So for me, on a career perspective, I hope to be doing more conducting work, because
Yeah.
that's something that I truly love.
Yeah.
Just working with people. In fact, I have my own group called Ensemble Fantasque. We're based in New York.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So our group Ensemble Fantasque, we aim to promote more 20th, 21st century music, and also underperformed pieces of the past. And usually these pieces are challenging, complex. Some of them may have had bad premieres, or they disappeared throughout history, and we hope to bring them back to the broader public. So that's
Yep.
the mission of my group.
Okay, and how is it going? How have you been performing a lot lately? You're looking for more support.
So we had our first concert in past December,
Yeah.
and we have another one this May. We actually, a few weeks ago, we launched our crowdfunding, and it's still going on.
What's your goal?
Our goal is 2,000. Thankfully, we actually exceeded the goal already.
Oh yeah, 2,000 is a small goal. Like yeah, so it's good. It's good that you were quickly like, my goal is $20, and if at least one,
yeah.
it's a good strategy.
Yeah, because we know that at least for me, the group is still very new.
Yeah.
So we
It's a chamber orchestra. What is it?
I would say about a chamber orchestra size.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly less than a full chamber orchestra. About 15, 20 people.
Gotcha,
so yeah, a
gotcha.
Sinfonietta might be
Amazing.
a way to look at it. So yeah, we're still starting out, but yeah, we've gained a bit of support, and the hope is to, of course, do it for a longer term.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with whoever's listening? Anything that you want to tell our audience, your audience, about you? Yeah.
I would say, to those of you who want to pursue music as your career, or who aspire to be musicians, my advice would be, don't just focus on the musical aspect. Unleash your full individualized character, whether it means, is there a painting side of you? Is there a
Yeah.
cooking side of you? And tie it together with music, because there are many great musicians, but there are not many people who are you in that sense. So don't just focus on
There's
the
only
musical
one you.
aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So focus on other non-musical aspects to to have an enriching life.
That's very good. And what are some non-musical aspects in your life?
In my life, I would say not that much, unfortunately, and I think that's probably why I'm giving this spiel at the end.
You are
Because
music.
Yeah, because
do you
for
have
me-
any hobbies? Like,
I mean, I do watch Netflix time to time. I do cook time to time, but I would say they're not nowhere as serious as my love and obsession with music.
Yeah, because a lot of people do have those interests, and I think they should definitely pursue them. I'm very much like you in a way. I'm only music and only career focused. I really don't have any hobbies either. But pairing it with a good relationship, like you're doing, building all that life, that's also very important. I think in my case, that has definitely been my other big thing. My relationship to my wife and the family that we want to build eventually. That that's not call it a hobby, but that's a whole other side of me that's important.
And also being as flexible as you can. And I'm sure
Exactly.
as you have probably experienced the things that you have to change, and whether it's musically or whether it's life, that you have to sacrifice. But it's for the
man.
greater good of everyone.
Absolutely, man. Irfan, it's been really nice talking to you. Thank you so much for coming by. Whenever you have something big going on, if you want to promote a concert or anything, you're always welcome to come back here and talk and promote it. So we can get to know you better and your projects. And I would love to sometime have your wife here as well with little Suleiman. That'd be really fun. That'd be really cute. Thank you so much for taking time. And please go check out Tengku Irfan's projects. That has a lot of videos. And we actually have some collaborations, you and me, over on YouTube. He's played some of my music. He's one of the best performers I've ever worked with. So never pass the opportunity to get to know who Irfan is. Thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you very much for your kind words and for inviting me here today.
Absolutely. See you around.
See you. Thank you.